Welcome to the Genetic CPD video. I'm Jess.
And I'm Alan.
We both have a personal interest in the topic of genetics and recently co-authored a dialogue paper called Genetics, a Testing Time for Insurers. In this video, we will provide a brief overview of the recent developments in genetic research and discuss the implications of these advances from a genetic researcher's perspective as well as from the life insurance industry. Genetics is fundamentally a question of nature versus nurture. In other words, the impact of genetics versus lifestyle choices. These impacts vary by disease. For example, Alzheimer's disease has a strong genetic link, whereas stroke is mainly due to lifestyle choices. Due to technological advances, the predictive power of these tests have increased and the costs associated have reduced, in some cases for as little as $200. Whilst this field is still developing, it is commonly agreed by experts that these tests will become more commonplace. A plausible application would be to use in stage medical screening, such as high-risk individuals identified through genetic tests can be screened earlier. This will provide an opportunity for people to make conscious decisions on their lifestyle, potentially improving their health outcomes and allow for more effective use of medical resources. These developments in genetic research are both important from an individual perspective and for our society. As the use of genetic tests become more prevalent, it is important for individuals to appreciate the major differences between these tests and other medical tests. We would like to highlight 4 such differences. Firstly, persistency of results. Traditional tests such as blood tests will show results at a point in time, and these results will change. In contrast, your genes are the same and they don't change over time. What will change is the interpretation of the results as research improves. This raises some interesting questions. For example, if you take one test, does that mean you've preemptively consented to all future tests? And what are the rules used to govern how these tests should be used in the future? Secondly, genetic results can predict disease before any onset of symptoms. Many traditional screening tests are usually designed to either confirm symptoms or diagnosis, whereas genetic tests can predict disease before any symptom onset. Whilst this is not unique, for example, smoker status can be used to predict future health. The strength of these tests are much stronger. Thirdly, information and purpose. The information that can be gleaned from genetic tests is broad and can provide information outside of their original intent. For example, a genetic ancestral test may uncover unexpected health risks. To help patients better understand the consequences of these tests, a genetic counsellor may be offered in conjunction. Finally, the method of providing for a genetic test. The mechanism by which a predictive genetic test can be obtained may differ from other traditional methods. For example, only a small DNA sample is required, and the sample can be from past material as well as from any part of the body. And finally, whilst these tests can be obtained clinically, they are also offered direct to consumer, for example, via mail order through the internet.
So the key points I'd take from that, Jess, are that genetic medicine has advanced, and now it's advancing more rapidly, and genetic testing seems certain to become more commonplace.
Now that we understand more about the individual considerations, let's talk about broader industry implications. To start, can you tell us how geneticists feel about the use of genetic information in life insurance?
Yes, thanks, Jess. I talk with a lot of leading academics and educators in genetics, and to a person, they're excited about the future. Increasingly, they're managing whole genome analyses, and there are now some very large databases, some containing the personal genomes of more than 100,000 people. At last, genetics is starting to unlock the potential for improvements in health that was one of the visions when the human genome was first mapped early this century. Now, naturally, the genetics industry wants to go full steam ahead with this work. They become impatient and even intolerant about anything that stands in the way of their progress. And they do see one major blockage. Almost universally, genetics experts are concerned about one fear held by possible research subjects. Analysis of the tissues that they donate for research will sometimes discover that the patient has one of the gene variants linked to future health problems. This may happen even for research subjects without any family history of disease. If the person involved knows about that finding, they have to disclose it if they apply for life insurance, if the insurer asks for it. Geneticists say that fear of adverse insurance consequences is a major reason why people who are asked may refuse to participate in genetics research. But not being involved may mean a genetic problem is not discovered, hence not treated, leading to a bad health outcome that the research could have prevented. The genetics community want to remove that insurance fear, allowing wider research and faster development of beneficial health treatments. They look overseas and see that many countries have legislated to protect genetic information. In those countries, moratoria or even outright bans prevent life insurers from using genetic test results when underwriting. The genetics community has used the 2017 Joint Parliamentary Inquiry into Life Insurance to call for a similar ban to be introduced in Australia. That call is beginning to receive wide media attention and support.
Thanks, Alan. Your final point is very topical. And to summarise, genetic experts are campaigning to restrict the access of genetic information used by Australian life insurers at the underwriting stage. How does the life insurance industry feel about this?
Well, the status quo for life insurers has been established for a very long time. In fact, it's enshrined in the governing legislation. Any information that the applicant for a life policy knows about their risk must be disclosed if the insurer asks about it. The legislation includes remedies for the life insurer if it finds out later that non-disclosure has occurred. Now, the last big investigation of genetic risks by the government extended from 2000 to 2003 and was conducted by the best legal and medical thinkers in the country. It reinforced the principle of equality of access to information. In other words, it decided that genetic information was, in its essence, no different from other information that may help an insurer evaluate future claim risk. That is why known genetic test results can be requested now. For life insurers to be persuaded to change, I think it would be necessary to provide strong, factual justification why they should in future be denied access to known genetic test information. Insurers are concerned that taking away the right to ask for known genetic test results may have adverse financial impacts. It would mean that a certain class of applicants, those who know they're at higher risk because of their genetic makeup, will be able to buy their life insurance too cheaply. And that creates a form of moral hazard, known in the industry as anti-selection. The way it proceeds is that poorer risks can load up on their insurance, which will put up claim costs, forcing insurers to raise premiums for everyone. The net result would be that the extra cost of the insurance for genetic risks would be borne by the healthier lives, meaning they would end up paying more than the cost of their own insurance.
So the key point for life insurers is that they see the current approach of full disclosure of all risk information, including genetic information, as being fairer to everyone. Now let's look at how we compare to other countries.
Well, the first countries to impose bans on life insurers using genetic test information were in Europe. UK took a slightly different approach of a voluntary moratorium for policies up to quite substantial sizes. More recently, in May 2017, Canada imposed a complete ban. And in those countries that do have bans or moratoria, it must be said that their life insurance industries have still been able to operate up to date. On the other hand, there are some countries with large populations who have no overriding legislation, including USA, India and China. In Australia, past decisions by the Commonwealth Government have been against formal regulation. The government's preference has been for self-regulation through the Financial Services Council for Life Insurance.
Now, presumably the Australian approach was chosen specifically to suit us and our product designs and the Australian life insurance practice.
That's right. There are substantial differences between us and other overseas countries. For example, between Australia and Canada, where the recent change to ban discrimination based on genetic information has created much interest. Now in Australia, there are a range of life insurance products that are generally available without providing any personal health information. These help achieve a somewhat similar result to the moratorium that's in place in the UK. It does mean that most Australians can obtain cover of quite substantial size without needing to disclose anything about genetic tests they may have undertaken. One way for them to do so is to utilise the default insurance covers provided under compulsory employment-based superannuation plans. Another is through the types of direct marketed insurance covers sold through television advertising or mail offices, which are promoted as not asking for any medical questionnaires to be completed.
So in a nutshell, Alan, while the trend overseas may be towards limiting the life insurers on the use of genetic results, the unique aspects of life insurance in Australia need to be kept in mind.
Yes.
Alan and I hope that you found our video useful and thought-provoking. To summarise, we ask that you take away the following key message. Let us start the discussion again on how best to govern and use genetic information. We vote for a balanced and considered outcome. Thank you for watching.